The goddess, concerned about the destruction of nature caused by humanity, decided to impose a test on the world. To prevent humans from continuing to harm the natural balance, she created a challenge that would determine the fate of civilization. Suddenly, dungeons began to appear in various parts of the planet. These mysterious structures contained dangers and challenges that needed to be overcome. However, there was a condition: if certain results were not achieved within these dungeons, all of humanity would be doomed to annihilation. Faced with this imminent threat, a young man with a determined look walked under the starry sky, wearing a stylized uniform. The weight of responsibility fell on him, as the fate of humanity now depended on overcoming this divine challenge. In front of an imposing modern building, a young man with a radiant expression showed his hand, where a mysterious symbol was marked. His enthusiasm was evident as he shared the news of becoming an explorer. Another boy, named Hinata, watched the mark with surprise, amazed by his friend's achievement. His words showed disbelief and excitement at what he saw. Meanwhile, a third young man, blond and excited, approached with energy, giving Hinata a motivating pat on the back. His gesture showed encouragement, reinforcing the importance of putting in effort as well. The mood between them was one of friendship and enthusiasm for the future. The blond young man, with a confident expression, approached, whispering provocative words into the ear of the dark-haired boy. For someone at level 0 like him, becoming an explorer would be simply impossible. His sharp gaze and smug smile made his contempt clear. While hearing these words, the boy tensed, feeling the weight of reality. Since the dungeons appeared on Earth, society had been governed by a level system, where the stronger dominated the weaker. This new ruthless world had completely transformed the way people lived. He knew exactly where he fit into this cruel system, at the bottom of the hierarchy, being the weakest of all. And still, despite this overwhelming reality, he dared to proclaim himself an explorer. Inside a classroom, a group of students laughed loudly, mocking the dark-haired boy. The blonde, leading the teasing, laughed openly while questioning the possibility of him becoming an explorer. To him, the idea was absurd. The boy, somewhat hesitant, admitted the possibility that they were right. After all, being considered the weakest in the world, how could he even think of entering a dungeon? His level was 0, and his potential was classified as the lowest, in category F. In the eyes of others, he was nothing but a lost cause. However, amid the teasing, a spark of determination emerged. With a slight smile, he hinted that, despite his level still being low, things could change from that moment onward. His response surprised the blonde, who reacted with astonishment, not expecting such a statement. For a long time, the 0-level young man had been ridiculed and despised by those around him. His status made him a constant target for humiliation, and mockery was something he had become used to. What Kai said now was not new to him. To escape this suffocating environment, he made a drastic decision. He left his hometown and enrolled in Seishin High School, hoping to start anew. However, his reputation preceded him, and quickly everyone discovered that he was still a level 0. On his way to school, the same blonde boy from before laughed loudly, mocking him once again. With a sarcastic tone, he announced the arrival of the eternal level 0, Hinata-sama, drawing the attention of other students. The young man sighed, resigned to the situation, lamenting the fact that he had to face Kai there as well. Even so, something inside him still resisted. The young man watched intently as a board displayed the ranking of the day's explorers. This ranking showed the names of those who had excelled in the dungeons, recognizing the top 100 as true heroes. Despite his desire to explore, he knew that the challenges inside the dungeons were deadly, filled with monsters and dangers. Moreover, forming a group seemed impossible, as no one would be willing to accept someone with level 0. As he reflected on his situation, some people around reacted with surprise upon seeing someone in the distance. The shock was evident, and the gazes turned toward this mysterious figure. Among them, a young woman with long hair showed astonishment as she noticed the presence of this person, her wide eyes reflecting the surprise of the moment. On the school campus, murmurs and admiring looks turned toward an imposing figure walking with confidence. The young woman with long blonde hair attracted the attention of everyone around her. Her name was Hinata, and her status was legendary among the students. Rumors spread quickly. They said she had S-rank potential, being considered the strongest among the students. Additionally, she had already joined the student council, further increasing her influence at the school. For many, she was an unattainable presence. Among the observers, some commented on her lineage, noting that she was the daughter of the leader of the Kamui clan, making her position even more respectable. Others, more stunned by her beauty and prestige, wondered if they would have any chance of getting close, harboring naive hopes of securing a meeting. However, Hinata continued her walk, indifferent to the reactions around her. Inside the classroom, the atmosphere was tense as the students introduced themselves in order. The 0-level young man, upon entering, encountered an intimidating presence sitting in front of him. It was Kamui Hinata, the strongest student in the school. The shock on his face was evident as he recognized her. He took the seat right behind her, immediately feeling the piercing gazes of the other students. The weight of expectations and judgments weighed on him, making the environment even more suffocating. When it was Hinata's turn to introduce herself, her firm and controlled voice echoed through the room. Everyone paid attention to her, admiring her unshakable posture. The silence that followed only reinforced her authority in the place. Meanwhile, the young man continued to feel anxious, realizing he had gotten involved in something much bigger than he had expected. The atmosphere in the classroom remained tense as the introductions continued. When it was the zero-level young man's turn, he stood up abruptly, visibly nervous. With an expression of pure panic, he announced his name aloud, Suzuki Hinata. The brief silence in the room was quickly broken by murmurs and surprised looks. Some students wondered why he was so agitated, while others discreetly laughed at the situation. The teacher, impassive, simply continued with the roll call. Suzuki, still trying to control his nervousness, added a few words about his origin and his indecision regarding which club to join. He also awkwardly mentioned that he shared the same name as the S-rank student, Kamui Hinata, a detail that only added to the oddness of the situation. On the other side of the room, Kamui Hinata listened to his introduction without showing any apparent emotion, merely observing the scene with indifference. Suzuki, for his part, hoped that his embarrassment would end soon, but the feeling of being judged by everyone remained strong. In front of the imposing dormitory building, Suzuki Hinata was impressed by its size and modern structure. While observing the place, a woman approached, calling his name. A bit surprised, he confirmed his identity. She introduced herself as Kanoko, the dormitory supervisor, and handed him a rulebook, instructing him to read it carefully. Her serious expression made it clear that she expected responsibility from him. Suzuki, somewhat flustered, absorbed the information and responded affirmatively, recognizing the importance of the supervisor. However, the weight of responsibility began to be felt, as now someone was relying on him in this new environment. In the dormitory cafeteria, the new residents gathered for a welcome meeting. Suzuki Hinata, remembering the event, realized he needed to organize himself better, starting by arranging his things before engaging in any other activities. Meanwhile, a group of students discussed forming teams. An enthusiastic girl suggested that, since they had similar levels, they could form a group together. Her excitement was quickly matched by a boy who was also looking for companions. The decision was made quickly, but one of the students seemed confused, realizing she didn't exactly know who she was associating with. Despite the surprise, the proposal had already been accepted by the others, consolidating the new team amid the excitement of the participants. In the cafeteria, Suzuki Hinata introduced himself to his classmates, trying to keep his composure. However, when he revealed his rank, a silence fell over the room. His level was F, the lowest possible. The reaction was immediate, and some students were surprised, questioning how he managed to enroll in Seishin High School, an institution that favored explorers. As he reflected on this, he himself didn't know how he had been accepted. The school favored students with potential for the dungeons, and it was rare for someone without abilities to live in the dorms. One of the students commented on this out loud, further increasing the atmosphere of doubt and distrust surrounding Suzuki. One of the girls, embarrassed by the situation, apologized for the other's reaction, trying to ease the tension. However, an attentive gaze rested on Suzuki. One of the students, noticing his hands covered by gloves, questioned whether he wore them to hide his true level. The young man, caught off guard by the direct question, hesitated before responding. The explanation of the rank system was presented, highlighting that humanity had developed a method to measure potential capacity since birth. The maximum rank was S, while the minimum was F, and this system determined the perspectives of an explorer. While some exalted the rarity and power of rank S, one of the students explained that having low potential didn't necessarily mean being weak. Even A-rank explorers could fail in their progress. This surprised Suzuki Hinata, who didn't fully understand what that meant for his own situation. One of the students reinforced the point that, even with an F rank, he could still stand out. After all, potential was just an initial indicator, not an absolute limit. What really mattered to become strong was the level difference gained over time. Upon this revelation, Suzuki froze, processing the new information. For the first time, he considered that maybe his initial ranking wasn't the end of his journey, but rather a starting point. In the cafeteria, the conversation about the level system continued. Some students encouraged the idea that anyone could improve as long as they worked hard and leveled up. However, another point was raised: no one had ever heard of an F-rank person achieving success. While the others shared their own levels ranging from 4, 5, and 6, Suzuki Hinata reflected on his situation. He already knew his position was the worst possible, but being confronted directly with this harsh reality made it even harder to accept. Later, lying in his bed at the dormitory, he stared at the ceiling, lost in thought. His status wasn't just F rank, but also level 0, an abnormal value, as everyone normally started at level 1. This realization only reinforced the feeling of being in a position impossible to overcome. Still, something inside him refused to give up. While in his room, Suzuki Hinata looked at the screen of his phone, where a message from his younger sister appeared. She asked if he had already gotten used to the new school and mentioned her own wish to join Seishin High School next year. He had asked her not to contact him for a while, but still, her message reached him, reigniting thoughts of his motivations. One of the main reasons he decided to enter Seishin High School was the desire to provide a better life for his mother and sister. Becoming an explorer meant a chance to earn a lot of money and ensure the comfort of his family. However, reality was harsh. His level and rank were the worst possible, and the prospects of success seemed far away. Lying in bed, he pondered about his future and the difficulties he would face if he continued at this pace. But, even amidst these uncertainties, the memory of his sister and his goals reignited something within him. With a sudden impulse, he got up with determination, declaring to himself that he couldn't give up. Suzuki Hinata filled himself with determination, refusing to accept his fate as a level 0. He couldn't face his sister or his family with this weakness. If defeating monsters inside a dungeon was the only way to evolve, then he would have to try, no matter the risk. With a firm look and clenched fists, he reaffirmed his decision. He couldn't give up now. No matter how low his rank was, he was determined to move forward. Before him, the entrance to Dungeon E117 loomed, dark and mysterious. Guards stood watch, emphasizing the seriousness of the challenge. Suzuki, however, did not back down. It was time to act, to challenge the impossible, and prove that even a level 0 could fight for a better future. Before departing, Suzuki Hinata received some words of advice from Supervisor Kanoko. She warned him about the importance of preserving his life above all else. As an explorer, his greatest challenge was not only to level up but also to survive. Even more determined, he responded enthusiastically, accepting the challenge ahead. The nearest dungeon for beginners was E117, and that was where he was headed. Upon arriving at the registration desk, he tried to get someone's attention. However, the place was quiet, with no immediate sign of assistance. Still, his determination did not waver. He was ready to take the first step into the unknown. At the dungeon reception, a nervous and somewhat clumsy receptionist greeted Suzuki Hinata. She quickly noticed his uniform and confirmed that he was from Seishin High School, asking if this was his first time. He confirmed, and the receptionist prepared to grant him his explorer's license. However, while searching for the box with the necessary registration items, she realized she had misplaced something. Desperate, she started looking for the object, wondering where she could have left it. Her distraction caught the attention of another staff member, who scolded her for her disorganization. Meanwhile, Suzuki waited, curiously observing the process. Eventually, a special crystal was brought. This object was used to assess the explorer's potential, with its color indicating their rank. With a mix of apprehension and expectation, Suzuki prepared to see the results of this test once again. Suzuki Hinata placed his hand on the crystal, feeling the energy around him. He already knew the result, but still, a mix of anticipation and apprehension filled him. The crystal, which would normally shine in a color indicating the user's potential, remained as black as the darkness. He remembered the previous explanations. The potential had color, and it was based on that color that ranks were assigned. However, if the crystal turned completely black, it meant there was no color, no potential. This was the mark of someone with level 0. A status that, in practice, meant the complete absence of ability or growth. As if his existence were being devoured by the darkness, erased before it even began. As he faced that frustrating result once more, Suzuki felt the weight of his reality. But he had already made a decision. No matter what that crystal said, he would not give up. Before the black crystal, Suzuki Hinata felt a mixture of frustration and disbelief. His body trembled as his mind echoed the inevitable question, why did this happen to me? It was a fate that seemed inescapable, a mark that placed him at the lowest level of all. As he tried to process the reality, the receptionist returned happily, holding a board with a document. With a radiant smile, she announced her return but quickly noticed that the reception was empty. She wondered if everyone had gone home, unaware of the heavy atmosphere in the air. Suzuki, still absorbing his own fate, remained still, feeling the weight of his classification. He couldn't change that result, but his determination to move forward remained within him. Suddenly, Suzuki Hinata was overcome by a strange sensation. His body trembled as something around him seemed to distort. Before he could react, a black vortex pulled him forcefully, tearing him away from reality. Panic took hold of him as he fell uncontrollably, his wide eyes reflecting the terror of the unknown. The world around him turned into a dark void, and the only thing echoing in his mind was the desperate question: was he falling to hell? As he tried to reach out for something to hold onto, his silhouette disappeared into the darkness, swallowed by an uncertain fate. Suzuki Hinata slowly regained consciousness. The darkness around him was thick, making it difficult to see anything. For a moment, he still felt like he was falling, but when he looked down, he saw his feet firmly on the ground. Confused, he tried to understand what had happened. Where was he? Before him, a shadowy figure rose against the starry sky, a mysterious castle in the midst of an unknown vastness. Suddenly, a message appeared before him: Lucifer's fall has been analyzed. Another notification indicated that a skill called Dungeon Information was being activated. Not fully understanding what this meant, he was even more surprised when a new alert appeared. Due to the difficulties faced, you have acquired the skill, Dungeon Information. His eyes widened in shock. Something had changed. For the first time, even being level 0, he had acquired a skill. Suzuki Hinata tried to understand his situation. Everything indicated that he had been transported inside a dungeon. The mention of Lucifer's fall made him wonder if this was the phenomenon that brought him here. As he thought, a new notification appeared: due to the difficulties faced, you have acquired the skill, Surrounding Exploration. He was even more surprised now he had another skill. But before he could process the information, something strange happened to his body. A disturbing sensation took over him, and his hand began to contort unnaturally. The intense pain made him scream, and he instinctively grabbed his own arm, trying to contain the agonizing feeling. Another notification appeared: due to the difficulties faced, you have acquired the skill, Resistance to Foreign Objects. His body seemed to be reacting to the hostile environment in an unknown way. He gasped, sweating cold. Something was definitely happening to him, and now, more than ever, he needed to figure out what this dungeon was and how to get out alive. Suzuki Hinata collapsed to the ground, his body trembling as an overwhelming sensation took over him. Something was wrong. A notification appeared before his eyes: due to the difficulties faced, you have acquired the skill, Resistance to Abnormal States. He tried to move, but the intense pain made every muscle resist. His despair grew as he stretched out his trembling hand, seeking help. Ask someone. His voice was weak, almost a whisper, as his vision began to fade. Then, more notifications appeared. His new skill was rapidly evolving: Resistance to Abnormal States, Resistance to Status Alterations, Medium. And it continued: Resistance to Abnormal States, High, Resistance to Abnormal States, Very High, until it finally reached Immunity to Abnormal States. He panted on the ground, trying to understand what was happening. His body, once consumed by suffering, now seemed different, as if it were adapting to everything that tried to destroy him. But why? What exactly was happening to him inside this dungeon? Suzuki Hinata's eyes suddenly opened. He found himself lying in his bed at the dormitory. His breath was rapid, and his heart was still pounding. Confused, he sat up, looking around. Everything seemed normal. My room, was it a dream? The doubt echoed in his mind as he tried to understand what had happened. He clearly remembered the pain, the terror of the darkness, and the evolution of his skills inside the dungeon. But now, he was back, as if nothing had happened. Slowly getting up, he muttered a momentary relief. If someone passes out in a dungeon, it means certain death. The simple fact of being alive was already surprising. However, when he extended his hand, something felt strange. A chill ran down his spine. Something was different. Could it really have been a dream, or something much more real than he was willing to admit? Suzuki Hinata held his head, trying to understand his situation. He was still inside the dungeon. How long had he been unconscious? And that strange voice earlier mentioned something about skills. Suddenly, a new notification appeared: you have acquired the skill list, due to the difficulties faced. He was surprised again. Again? How was this possible? He had never heard of anyone gaining skills this way. Before his eyes, a glowing panel materialized, displaying a detailed list of skills. Some were active, like Surrounding Exploration, while others were passive, like Resistance to Foreign Substances, Immunity to Abnormal States, Vitality Recovery, Medium, and Hunger Resistance. Confused, he tried to understand what was happening. Do I get new skills automatically every time something happens? It seemed surreal, as if he were inside a game. But there was no time for doubts. The only certainty he had now was that something was changing inside him, and he needed to figure out what it meant before it was too late. Suzuki Hinata moved cautiously through the dungeon, not knowing if this place was truly safe. His newly acquired skill, Surrounding Exploration, proved useful, allowing him to notice details around him, like a map emerging in his peripheral vision. The air around him was charged with extreme levels of poison and paralysis, something that could be fatal for any other explorer. However, thanks to his immunity to abnormal states, he was able to resist without being affected. As he walked, his memories of an old dungeon beginner's guide resurfaced, warning him about traps. Normally, F-rank dungeons wouldn't be too dangerous, but this place seemed different. Suddenly, a new skill awakened, night vision, granted due to the difficulties faced. His vision drastically improved, allowing him to see clearly in the dark. Now, he could see the stars and the imposing castle in the distance, increasing his curiosity and caution about what he might encounter ahead. Suzuki Hinata continued exploring the dungeon when he spotted a small lake surrounded by rocks and dense vegetation. Feeling his throat dry, he realized the relief of finding water, even though his hunger resistance minimized the need for food. Approaching the shore, he knelt down and scooped up some water with his hands. However, due to his night vision, the liquid's color seemed strange. Still, ignoring any hesitation, he brought the water to his mouth and drank quickly, prioritizing the need to hydrate. As much as he knew the hidden dangers of a dungeon, at that moment, his thirst was stronger than his caution. As soon as Suzuki Hinata drank the water, a horrible taste filled his mouth, forcing him to spit it out immediately. His instincts warned him of possible danger, but his environmental exploration skill didn't indicate any threat from the water, meaning that despite the awful taste, it wasn't poisonous. Before he could reflect further on this, a notification appeared informing him that, due to the imminent danger, his vitality recovery, medium, skill had evolved into vitality recovery, high. His body prepared for a possible confrontation. Something was wrong. Looking around, he began to suspect that monsters might be approaching. Suddenly, a jet of water shot violently in his direction, forcing him to retreat. The danger had become real. Something was lurking in the darkness, and now, Hinata needed to act fast to survive. The water Suzuki Hinata drank turned out to be poisonous. A jet of liquid exploded violently, spreading throughout the environment. If it weren't for his immunity to abnormal states, he would have surely been in grave danger. Taking a deep breath, he recognized that once again he had been saved by this skill. The dungeon was no ordinary place, and he couldn't continue acting recklessly. Determined to avoid further mistakes, he moved with more caution, navigating through rocks and dense vegetation. The distant castle remained his only point of reference. Now, more than ever, he understood that surviving here would require more than just luck. Suzuki Hinata had already walked quite a distance through the dungeon but still hadn't found an exit. Fatigue was starting to build up, but his mind remained filled with questions. He didn't even have an explorer's license, so how had he been able to enter here? Something didn't make sense. While he pondered, a chill ran down his spine. His body reacted instinctively, as if something was approaching. His senses sharpened, and an oppressive feeling filled the atmosphere. The sound of something moving echoed throughout the place, and his breathing quickened. There was something there. His heart pounded as his eyes searched for the source of the threat. Could it be a monster? He wasn't sure, but one thing was clear. He was about to face something for the first time in this dungeon. Suzuki Hinata froze when the monstrous presence finally revealed itself. Before him, a colossal creature emerged from the darkness. Its eyes glowed intensely, and its sharp fangs gleamed in the weak dungeon light. Shock overtook him. This couldn't be real. The size of the creature, its intimidating aura, and the threatening sound of its heavy breathing made it clear that he wasn't facing a common enemy. His heart raced. How could a monster of this level be in a beginner's dungeon? Nothing made sense. The pure instinct for survival screamed inside him, but his body hesitated, paralyzed by fear. If he didn't react quickly, he wouldn't stand a chance against that deadly threat. In front of the monstrous creature, Suzuki Hinata tried to understand what was happening. Normally, weaker monsters should appear first in a dungeon, but this being didn't fit that pattern. He considered the possibility that it was the floor's boss or even an irregular, an exceptionally powerful creature that appeared outside of the normal dungeon parameters. Either way, he knew he had no chance against something of that level. Deciding to slowly retreat, he planned to wait for the monster to disappear before making any sudden movements. However, before he could react, something caught his attention. A hidden eye within the creature's body opened and fixed directly on him. His heart raced. He had been noticed. The hope of escaping unnoticed crumbled, and now, he was facing a real nightmare. The monster finally advanced, roaring in fury and displaying its sharp fangs. Suzuki Hinata didn't need anything more to understand the gravity of the situation. He needed to run immediately. His body moved purely on instinct, darting in the opposite direction as the creature pursued him. The ground trembled with every step the monster took, and the pressure of its presence made it hard to even breathe. A notification appeared informing him that due to imminent danger, something was happening with his skills. But he didn't have time to worry about that now. His only chance was to run and find an exit before it was too late. Every second counted. If he hesitated, he'd be devoured right there. Suzuki Hinata ran with all his strength as the monster relentlessly chased him. With each step, he felt the pressure of the creature closing in, and the desperation grew. Suddenly, a new notification appeared. You've obtained the skill, Speed Boost. Soon after, another update indicated that, due to imminent danger, the skill had already evolved into Speed Boost Medium. His body responded instantly. His steps became faster, and his reflexes sharper. He was running at a speed he had never experienced before. Even so, the monster didn't give up and continued its fierce pursuit. With the path narrowing and rocky walls ahead, Hinata needed to find an escape before his advantage disappeared. If he made even one mistake, it would be his last run. Suzuki Hinata kept running desperately, but the monster was closing in rapidly, reducing his chance of escape. Desperation took hold as he realized his speed wasn't enough. Suddenly, a new notification appeared. Speed Boost evolved to High. His body reacted instantly, allowing him to gain more distance. However, the creature still didn't give up. Seconds later, another notification appeared. Speed Boost evolved to Very High. His acceleration reached an absurd level, and before he could fully comprehend what was happening, his body shot forward like never before. With a single thrust, he was launched far away, breaking speed barriers he never imagined possible. His movement became uncontrollable, and now, he wasn't just running to escape, he was being dragged by his newfound force. The frantic chase reached a new level when Suzuki Hinata's skill evolved again, becoming Speed Boost Hyperspeed. His body shot forward like lightning, leaving the creature behind in the blink of an eye. For a moment, he felt a relief he had finally escaped. However, his uncontrollable speed took him into a new environment. The terrain around him drastically changed, and soon he found himself in a dense forest, something unexpected within that dungeon. Even with his impressive acceleration, he realized that the place still had some influence over him. No matter how much his speed increased, it seemed that this place continued to shape his destiny. Now, lost in a new territory, he needed to figure out where he was before another threat emerged. Suzuki Hinata stopped running, panting, believing he had escaped the monster. However, when he looked up, his body froze. The creature was right in front of him. The giant monster stared at him with fierce eyes, its imposing body blocking any escape route. Every detail of its sharp fangs and tensed muscles made it clear that it had no intention of letting him leave alive. Sweat dripped down Hinata's face. His heart raced as he tried to process the situation. Even after all that speed, the monster had still caught up to him. Now, he had nowhere to run. The only option left was to survive. Suzuki Hinata was cornered. The monster slowly advanced, its overwhelming presence making the situation even more desperate. He had no place left to run. His instincts screamed at him to flee, but a new idea began to form in his mind. If he fought, perhaps he could awaken more skills. His body had already evolved multiple times in the face of danger. If he continued, he might have a real chance of winning. The fear was still there, but something inside him began to change. He couldn't die here. Clenching his fists, he decided to take the risk. If it was fight or die, then he would choose to fight. Preparing for the confrontation, a certainty grew inside him. He could do this. Suzuki Hinata advanced with determination, but the moment the monster opened its enormous mouth, reality hit him hard. It was impossible. The survival instinct took over, and fear dominated his body. He realized he had no chance against that creature. His mind screamed at him to run, but it was already too late. Suddenly, a crushing force descended from the sky. A brutal impact shook the ground, and the monster was sent flying with absurd violence. Hinata barely managed to understand what had happened. He looked up, his heart racing. What could be strong enough to knock that creature away with a single blow? Something even more powerful had entered the battle. Suzuki Hinata kept trying to escape, but his body no longer responded like it had before. He had run so much that his energy was almost depleted. While struggling to catch his breath, the creature advanced again, its roar echoing through the environment. Every step the monster took made the ground tremble, and Hinata knew he wouldn't be able to escape this time. However, a new attack came from another direction. Someone or something had entered the fight against the monster. The impact was brutal, and the shock of the forces created a wave of dust. Even exhausted, Hinata tried to understand what was happening. Was there another enemy, or had someone come to help him? All he knew was that his chance of survival depended on what happened in the next few seconds. Suzuki Hinata, on the brink of collapse, fought bravely against the creature's pursuit. In the midst of extreme danger, a new notification appeared: you've acquired the skill, Resistance Boost, due to the danger. Gradually, he noticed something strange. The monster, which had attacked without hesitation before, now hesitated. Why wasn't it advancing? Hinata wondered if the creature was tired or wounded. Then he noticed the environment around him. He was near a lake, but it wasn't an ordinary lake, it was the lake of mortal poison. If the monster had chased him here, there might be a chance to turn the tide. With this discovery, he had to act quickly. If he could use the location to his advantage, he might have a real chance to survive. Hinata realized there was a possible way to turn the situation in his favor. If the monster avoided the lake of mortal poison, perhaps he could use it as a weapon. He quickly scooped up some of the poison water, preparing to use it against the creature. The monster, paying attention to every movement, started to move cautiously, no longer charging as it had before. Looking into the beast's eyes, Hinata felt the tension rise. Would the plan work, or was he just delaying the inevitable? With the dangerous liquid in his hands, this might be his only chance to survive. The young man, cornered by the colossal monster, realized that running wasn't an option anymore. His body, exhausted from the long chase, trembled before the beast. However, in a moment of determination, he decided to use the environment to his advantage. With a quick movement, he threw the poison water at the creature, hoping it would be affected by the poison. The monster reacted violently, roaring in pain as the liquid made contact with its skin. The young man kept attacking, refining his technique as the battle intensified. The creature, enraged, advanced toward him, but now its movements were slower. The poison was beginning to take effect. With one final effort, the young man seized the opening and charged with everything he had. His strategy, combined with his newly acquired resistance and abilities, turned the tide. The monster, weakened, let out a final roar before falling. Panting, the young man stared at his defeated enemy, feeling a mix of relief and disbelief at his victory. The young man watched the fallen monster, surrounded by flames, but kept his guard up. He remembered the instructions from the beginner's guide for explorers, which warned about the danger of letting one's guard down too early. The body of the defeated enemy still moved slightly, a sign that it might not be completely finished. He took a deep breath, trying to recover the energy spent in the battle, as he assessed the remains of the creature. He thought about the usefulness of its bones and other materials, wondering if they could be used to help him survive in the hostile dungeon environment. Exhausted, the young man remained vigilant of his surroundings. The battle may have ended, but the danger of the unknown still lingered. He analyzed his newly acquired skills and realized that he had gained the monster dissection technique. He understood that this new skill was one of the active ones, meaning it needed to be used directly, unlike passive skills that were always in effect. As he examined his status panel, he noticed the benefits of his passive skills, like resistance to foreign objects, immunity to altered states, and night vision. He reflected on the importance of knowing when and how to use each of them. Determined to test his new technique, he activated the monster dissection skill, preparing to make the most of the fallen creature's remains. A glow of energy surrounded him as he focused on using his new power. After using the dissection skill, the young man was impressed by the amount of materials extracted from the defeated monster. Bones, skin, and other valuable resources were now before him, ready to be utilized. While examining the materials, his eyes fell upon a massive stone. He lifted it with effort and realized that it was a magical stone, a valuable resource used in generating energy and crafting magical weapons. However, something seemed odd. He remembered that in low-ranked dungeons, these stones usually didn't exceed 30 centimeters, but the one he found was absurdly large. Even without fully understanding the situation, he was excited about the possibility of selling the item for a great price, not yet realizing the true rarity and importance of what he had just acquired. The young man encountered a problem. How would he carry all the materials he had collected from the defeated monster? He thought about the need for something that would allow him to carry large amounts of items, like a magical backpack. While imagining this possibility, a thought crossed his mind: could he acquire such a skill? To his surprise, he felt a shift in his status and gained the dimensional storage skill, allowing him to store items conveniently and effortlessly. Excited by this new acquisition, he celebrated his luck, now able to carry everything he found without worrying about weight or space. The young man explored his new dimensional storage skill, realizing that he could visualize the list of stored items and access them with just a thought. He experimented with storing and retrieving objects instantly, impressed by the skill's usefulness. However, when he tried to store some of the poisonous water from the lake, he realized a limitation: liquids couldn't be stored. This led him to reflect on the rules of the skill and whether there were any restrictions on items collected inside the dungeon itself. Despite his doubts, he decided not to waste time and moved forward, keeping his focus on exploration and survival. After the intense battle, the young man observed the lifeless body of the monster before him. The surroundings were silent, with only the night wind rustling the leaves of the trees. He still couldn't fully believe he had managed to defeat such a gigantic creature. His gaze fixed on the monster's empty eyes, bringing a mix of relief and unease. He reflected on the fight, recognizing that even though he had won, his survival was still not guaranteed. Exhaustion weighed on him, but the need to move forward was stronger. Even after the arduous battle and the defeat of the colossal monster, nothing had changed for him. His level remained unchanged, a cruel reminder of his unique condition. Frustration grew as he stared at the emptiness, reflecting on the immutable reality of his existence. The weight of uncertainty rested on his shoulders, but his clenched fist revealed that, despite it all, he had no intention of giving up. He moved cautiously along the underground path, trying to avoid being detected. However, he soon noticed the presence of strange creatures ahead. Small monsters resembling rabbits, but with an intimidating appearance, blocked his way. Surprised by this new challenge, he quickly adjusted his strategy, aware that he needed to move without drawing attention to survive in this hostile environment. As he advanced along the path, he noticed a strange detail: tree branches in an underground environment. Before he could react, a trap was triggered, and several creatures leapt toward him, surrounding him. However, due to the difficulties he had faced, he acquired the skills of trap detection and deactivation. With quick reflexes, he dodged the initial attack, preparing to face the unexpected threat. He realized that the movements of the creatures around him were much slower than before. The difference in speed seemed to be the result of his newly acquired skill, which had drastically increased his agility. Observing the enemy's attacks almost frozen before his eyes, he found a gap in the defense and prepared to counterattack confidently. Even with his increased speed, he realized that it still wasn't enough to dominate the fight completely. Determined to turn the tide, he intensified his attacks, launching quick and precise strikes against the creature in front of him. Each impact was followed by a fierce movement as he sought to exploit any opening in the enemy's defense. With a precise strike, he hit the creature directly, triggering a new skill acquired through experience. The impact of the fight made him realize that he could truly strengthen his techniques just by facing challenges. Excited by this discovery, he prepared to continue advancing, confident that each battle would bring new opportunities for growth. During the combat, his skills kept evolving. The strengthening of his bare-handed blows transformed into mastery of martial arts, reflecting his growing experience. New skills appeared spontaneously, including resistance to fear, resistance to pressure, and an emerging instinct for emergency evasion. Though his level remained unchanged, his body automatically responded to danger, allowing him to move with precision and confidence. He felt grateful for this unexpected growth, realizing he could continue advancing even without increasing his level conventionally. Determined to grow even more, he realized that if he kept up at this pace, he would be nothing but a burden to future companions in more difficult challenges. To avoid that fate, he decided to acquire as many skills as possible. Advancing in combat, he reaffirmed his belief that effort would be rewarded, channeling his determination to face enemies with even more fervor. He analyzed the materials he had collected, noticing that the magical stones were larger than expected. With a significant amount of resources stored, he decided that, for now, his goal was simply to survive and ensure he could leave the place with the materials he had obtained. Determined, he pressed forward, focused on finding an exit. Running toward the exit, he realized he was about to leave his first dungeon. Memories of his fight against the monster and his experience in the place flashed through his mind. With a sense of accomplishment and relief, he approached what seemed to be the end of his journey in that place. After leaving the dungeon, he found himself in a familiar environment, but soon realized the presence of a girl. With a serious look, she stared at him before letting out a sudden scream, surprising him. The shock made her lose her balance and fall, while he, still confused by the situation, tried to understand what was happening. He realized he was in a reception area, and the receptionist, still startled, complained that he had arrived without notice. Confused, he recognized her from somewhere, and she soon confirmed that he had been there the day before. Surprised, he realized he had been unconscious for an entire day in the dungeon, reflecting on how risky his experience had been. As he tried to process the situation, the employee questioned what he was doing there now. He kept trying to understand his situation as he realized he had been unconscious for an entire day. The receptionist confirmed that he had been there the day before, further increasing his surprise. While processing the information, he reflected on how he had managed to survive in the dungeon. The employee, still intrigued, questioned what he was doing there now. The employee noticed that he didn't have a license and suggested he obtain one. She explained that the license had several uses and offered more information on the subject. Hesitant, he finally agreed. The receptionist, excited, presented a mysterious box and asked him to put his hand inside to start the process. When he placed his hand inside the box, black smoke began to emerge, surprising the receptionist. Confused, she asked what was happening. The young man smiled and revealed that, since birth, his level had been 0. The revelation shocked the receptionist, who struggled to process the information. Not knowing how to react, she apologized for overreacting. However, the news spread quickly, leaving those nearby in disbelief. After the test, a symbol appeared on the young man's hand, confirming his approval as an explorer. The receptionist smiled and congratulated him, declaring that he was now a true explorer. He reflected that, even without defeating powerful monsters, he could collect small magical stones and sell them for money. In his mind, he thought this would help the family finances and allow him to buy things his sister liked. After becoming an explorer, the young man celebrated excitedly. On the exploration ranking, a new record surprised everyone. A newcomer had taken the first place with an impressive amount of points. However, the name displayed in the ranking appeared as. Meanwhile, another young man observed the news from afar, reflecting on his own situation and wishing he could one day enter the ranking. With the sudden appearance of the mysterious in the ranking, the world underwent an unexpected change. No one knew what it meant, not even the unknown individual themselves. The impact of this event intrigued everyone, and suspicious and curious glances turned toward him, trying to understand the extent of this anomaly. Hinata Suzuki, a level 0 explorer and rank F, considered the weakest in the world, had managed to complete the beginner dungeon. With that, he made his official debut as an explorer and now sought to exchange the items he had collected for money. Upon arriving at the shopping center, he tried to evaluate one of the magical stones he had acquired in the dungeon. However, the result was unexpected. The magical stone received a rank X classification and couldn't be evaluated. Surprised and confused, Hinata questioned the impossibility of identifying the value of the item, not understanding what that meant. Hinata Suzuki tried to sell the materials he had collected in the dungeon, but the evaluation machine rejected all the items. The rank X magical stone, the unknown skin, and the mysterious bones were classified as impossible to evaluate. Confused, he tested another item, but the result was the same. The machine suggested that, in such cases, the buyer should consult the rare item center. Faced with this situation, he began to question whether the machine was faulty or if his items were truly so rare that they couldn't be identified. Hinata Suzuki finally managed to sell one of his magical stones and was surprised to discover that the stone from a rare magical rabbit was worth 300,000 yen. Shocked by the value, he reflected on the impact of suddenly gaining so much money, especially as a high school student. Deciding to act cautiously, he chose to sell only one unit for now. The transaction was completed, and he received the payment. Feeling the weight of exhaustion after everything he had gone through, he left the place with the intention of resting. Hinata finally returned home and was greeted by Shino, who expressed relief upon seeing him back. He explained that he had been trapped in the dungeon and couldn't return earlier. Despite her concern, she reassured him, saying she believed in him but asked him not to overdo things and prioritize his safety above all else. Hinata realized just how dirty he was after his journey in the dungeon, surprised by his own worn appearance. Seno, seeing him in this state, commented that anyone would believe his words just by looking at him. With a warm look, she congratulated Hinata on his achievement, calling him Explorer Suzuki, which took the young man completely by surprise. Hinata reflected on his recent achievement of becoming an explorer, expressing deep gratitude. Seno, maintaining her serene demeanor, just watched him. While washing his clothes in the laundry, he noticed a large stain and was asked if he had returned from a dungeon. Although he thought Seno was a bit cold, he couldn't help but notice the beauty of her smile. Hinata introduced himself to Fuji Hiroto, a friendly classmate who reassured him about the mess he had accumulated on his journey, explaining that everyone goes through this at the beginning. When asked about the dungeon he explored, Hinata revealed that he was forced to enter the E-rank dungeon 117, surprising Hiroto. Despite the difficulties, he had managed to return safely. Hiroto, impressed, commented that most people prefer starting with D-rank dungeons. Hiroto was surprised to learn that Hinata explored the dungeon alone, warning about the dangers, even in an E-rank area. He suggested it would be safer to go in a group. Showing goodwill, Hiroto offered to accompany Hinata next time, even admitting he wasn't very strong but believing he could be useful. Hinata agreed to the idea and reflected on Hiroto's kindness, thinking that maybe one day he could be useful to someone too. The school day was coming to an end when Hinata was approached by Kai, a classmate with an intimidating presence. Calling him level 0, Kai demanded Hinata follow him for a moment. Surprised and nervous, Hinata hesitated but forced a smile and agreed to follow, unsure of what to expect. Hinata walked alongside Kai, his former high school peer, now someone he viewed as a symbol of terror. In the past, Kai always looked down on him and bullied him, but something had changed. Thanks to the skills he had acquired, such as resistance to fear and bullying, Hinata no longer felt the same intimidation. As Kai called him hesitantly, Hinata reflected on his own growth, determined to keep pushing forward, regardless of staying level 0 forever. Kai lunged at Hinata with a powerful punch, declaring the start of the fight. However, to Hinata's surprise, the attack appeared incredibly slow. his eyes fixed on the fist coming toward him, and his body instinctively reacted, dodging with ease. Kai, realizing his punch had failed, screamed in frustration, while the onlookers stared in disbelief at Hinata's unexpected speed and reflexes. Kai stepped back in fury after his failed punch, unable to comprehend what had happened. In the past, this punch would terrify Hinata, but now, after facing more powerful enemies in the dungeon, he saw that Kai's attack was much weaker than the ones he had encountered. With a determined look, Hinata took an offensive stance, ready to counterattack, while Kai, surprised, prepared to react. Hinata easily repelled Kai's blow, surprising his opponent. Upon impact, a cold sensation spread throughout Hinata's body, resulting in the acquisition of the cold resistance skill due to intense exposure. As he tried to understand what was happening, an imposing young woman approached with a serious look. Kai, irritated, insisted that the fight didn't concern her, but his expression changed upon realizing the presence of the girl. In a firm tone, she ordered the fight to stop without hesitation. Hinata, still processing the events, was surprised to hear his name being called by another student. The tension in the air increased as Kai seemed displeased with the interruption. Kai, furious at how things had unfolded, cast a threatening glance at Hinata, promising he would remember this. His behavior was unusual, especially for someone who ranked among the top 10. Hinata, surprised, had never seen him act like this before. As Kai walked away, Hinata thanked the young woman, Kamui, for her intervention. However, her serious expression showed no reaction to his gratitude, leaving him uncertain about the situation. Confused, Hinata wondered if he should have apologized but couldn't understand why. Watching the scene, another student commented that they were beginning to understand what Kamui had meant earlier, hinting that a woman's heart was complicated. As Hinata tried to process everything, uncertainty remained evident in his expression. A wave of ice spread violently through the environment, emanating from Kamui's figure. Hinata was forced to retreat, shielding himself from the intense icy current. The ground around him began to freeze rapidly, making his movements harder. As he tried to understand the situation, a notification appeared before him, informing him that he had acquired the resistance to freezing skill due to high exposure to extreme cold. Shock and confusion took over his thoughts. Was he really being attacked? Or was this some sort of unexpected test? Nearby structures began to be covered in ice, reinforcing the seriousness of what was happening. Hinata realized he needed to react quickly before the situation worsened further. A stream of cold air enveloped the environment, making the air almost cut through. Kamui stood motionless at the center of the ice storm, her presence emanating overwhelming pressure. Hinata could barely withstand the intense cold and realized that, without the resistance to freezing skill, he could have succumbed at that moment. He wondered why Kamui was there. What did she want? Why was she attacking with such power? Something felt off, and he needed to understand the situation quickly before it was too late. Hinata felt the biting cold intensifying every second. He knew he couldn't stay exposed to that extreme temperature for much longer. His body trembled as he tried to open a nearby door, but the frozen metal structure prevented any easy movement. Not understanding why Kamui had attacked, he needed to find a way to escape. His instincts screamed that staying there meant death. He gathered his strength and charged in the opposite direction, looking for an exit while Kamui's imposing figure remained still at the center of the freezing storm. Hinata moved quickly, aware that he couldn't just run away from the situation. His body reacted instinctively as he prepared to defend himself. Kamui maintained her imposing posture, but something in her expression indicated surprise at the unexpected resistance. Hinata's movements were precise, driven by the need to survive. He didn't want to attack, just protect himself. However, in the heat of the confrontation, an unexpected impact caused Kamui to hesitate for a moment. Something was about to change. Kamui, visibly shaken, started to tremble as tears streamed down her face. The tension in the battle broke when she, overwhelmed by fear and guilt, apologized desperately. Hinata, surprised, couldn't hide his shock at the unexpected scene. He hesitated, watching Kamui emotionally collapse. Her expression alternated between confusion and concern as she tried to understand what had happened. The warrior, who had once exuded strength and determination, was now vulnerable, consumed by panic. She admitted that she was afraid and couldn't handle it. The situation took an unexpected turn, leaving Hinata and the onlookers speechless. What had caused Kamui to reach this state? Kamui stared intently at Hinata, trying to process what had happened. Something inside her told her that he was different. Her heart was still racing from the shock of the fight, and now the truth seemed to become clearer. While Hinata awkwardly apologized, the scene seemed absurd to those watching. Kamui questioned how someone called Level 0 could exhibit so much power. Something was wrong. No one, not even the teachers, had noticed his true nature. Secretly, he had been hiding his strength all along. On the other side, Kai and the other students were still trying to understand what they had just witnessed. For Kamui, what intrigued her most was how Kai had dared provoke someone like Hinata. The situation had spiraled out of control, and the only certainty left was that this was not normal. Kamui's fear caused her to release her latent S-rank skill, Blessing of the God of Ice. The powerful cold energy emanated from her body uncontrollably, instantly freezing anyone it touched. She had trained to contain this power, but any slip-up resulted in dangerous leaks of cold, harming those around her. However, her opponent surprised her. Hinata received her attack directly and didn't freeze. He not only resisted the extreme cold but also advanced without hesitation. For Kamui, this could only mean one thing: Hinata saw her as an enemy. Kamui's terror overtook her. She didn't want to die, but the situation was spiraling out of control. Chaotic thoughts consumed her as she tried to decide what to do. Sitting on the ground, she cried, overwhelmed with despair. Her body trembled, no longer from the cold but from fear and uncertainty. Hinata, confused, watched the scene. He tried to understand why she was behaving this way. Was it because of the confrontation with Kai? Or was it something deeper? Kamui remained sitting on the ground, sobbing as she tried to explain the reason for her hesitation. She feared losing control and releasing a destructive power, something that could cause irreversible damage. The fear stopped her from attacking, and now she felt burdened by guilt and confusion. Hinata watched, shocked to realize that even with all the fear, she had gone through this terrifying experience because of him. The understanding weighed heavily on him as he saw Kamui's vulnerability. With a deep sigh, he approached, trying to calm the situation. His hand gently touched her head, a silent gesture of comfort and understanding. Kamui, still trembling, accepted the gesture without resistance. The tension in the air began to dissipate. Hinata, still nervous about the situation, took a handkerchief and carefully wiped Kamui's tears. Her eyes widened at the unexpected gesture, and her face flushed slightly. The silence between them was filled with surprise and emotion. He averted his gaze, unsure of how to handle the situation, and murmured hesitant words. He felt completely responsible for what had happened, and his expression reflected the guilt he carried. With a slightly awkward smile, he tried to offer help in some way, making it clear that he would do anything to make up for what had happened. Kamui, still processing the moment, watched him in silence, unsure of how to respond. Hinata, still a bit nervous, expressed his gratitude to Kamui for helping him. With a hesitant smile, he promised to do everything he could to repay the favor, offering his help in any way possible. Kamui, surprised by his sincerity and determination, observed his anxious expression. To her, Hinata's unexpected kindness seemed confusing and hard to comprehend. Used to keeping her distance from others, she wondered why someone like him was being so kind to her. Meanwhile, Hinata tried to reinforce his words, assuring her that he would do his best to help her. His clumsy yet sincere demeanor only made the situation seem stranger to Kamui, who continued to reflect on his unexpected attitude. Kamui looked at Hinata with uncertainty, still trying to process his words. Her gaze, once filled with distrust, now showed a slight vulnerability. Holding a handkerchief against her face, she tried to hide the blush that spread across her cheeks. Hinata, with his back to her, nodded timidly, confirming his offer without being able to look her in the eye. His nervousness was evident, but he stood firm in his decision. As the sun set on the horizon, Kamui, still hesitant, finally broke the silence. With an uncertain tone, she asked if she could make a request of Hinata. The doubt lingered in the air, leaving a mystery about what exactly she would ask.
The protagonist seems a little confused as he listens to what the girl says, with a doubtful expression. She, with a serious look, starts explaining that if he makes a girl cry, he must apologize with all his strength, and he seems to try to understand. The girl next to him, who seems more relaxed, says that if someone like Kamui-san says everything is fine, then it will be. The protagonist, after reflecting on the situation, agrees with an understood and prepares to carry out the task for Kamui-san. The protagonist and the girl walk side by side, and he seems impressed as he thinks about how amazing it is to be S-rank. He wonders if her lack of expression is because she's controlling her emotions. She seems distant, reflecting, while he comments about the God of Ice's protection. He also mentions that if he's not careful, he'll freeze. When she mentions that she lives in the dormitory, the protagonist is surprised, with a shocked expression, while she continues on her way. He then reflects on the fact that even Kamui-san is afraid of Kaijin-kun, realizing that, in the end, she is still just a girl. After saying goodbye to the girl, the protagonist seems to realize he made a mistake by letting her return alone, remembering that he should have accompanied her to the end. He is surprised and tries to understand what he did wrong, clearly confused and worried. As she walks away, he reflects on the fact that he has never seriously talked to a girl except for his sister. He seems nervous, struggling to find the right response for the situation. Fuji-kun is surprised when he hears a voice calling his name and sees a girl asking if she can sit next to him. He is a bit taken aback, but answers affirmatively. She then reveals a huge amount of food and with excitement exclaims how full she is. He is shocked by so much food, wondering where it all fits in her body. Meanwhile, the girl starts eating, seemingly enjoying every bite. The girl asks the protagonist if he was thinking of her as a small animal, probably because of his expression. He, a little surprised, imagines a scene where she looks like a cute puppy he wants to protect. She then remembers something and says that he seems to have a worried expression, questioning if he has any concerns. The protagonist, trying to defend himself, mentions that he is often called very masculine, but she responds that this is rude. He, a bit embarrassed, reacts by saying, "No." The protagonist, reflecting on the difficulties of understanding girls, comments that, since he lives in the dormitory, he let the girl go home alone. The girl responds that girls are hard to understand and imitates him, mentioning what he said about his sister, who taught him not to let a girl go home alone. The protagonist, surprised, wonders if he said that out loud. The girl then explains that his sister's view makes sense, but it depends on whether the girl wants to be accompanied or not, and concludes by saying it's a matter of perspective. The protagonist panics, thinking he forced a situation by trying to accompany Kamui-san, believing that she wouldn't want to be with someone like him. The girl he is talking to comments that women's hearts are complicated, something his sister also says. She explains that the ideal thing would be just to ask directly if the girl wants to be accompanied. He reacts thoughtfully while she jokes that she would get along with his sister. In response, he says he wouldn't give his sister to anyone. The protagonist and Kamui meet in a private training room. He asks if they are ready to start, and Kamui answers with determination. Soon after, she moves with impressive speed, surprising the protagonist, who watches attentively as she releases her energy, showing she means business. During the training, the protagonist feels the intense cold around him and tries to hold firm, determined not to freeze. He looks at Kamui seriously, which surprises her. He then declares that he wants to surpass his own limitations. Kamui, moved by his words, agrees and accepts the decision, though she is visibly shaken by his resolve. Kamui firmly declares that she wants to fully master the protection of the god of ice. The protagonist is surprised by the intensity of her words. She continues explaining that, for this, she wants him to keep staring at her, asking emotionally and insistently, which leaves him even more confused by the unexpected request. The protagonist understands that her request to be stared at was part of the training, as she lost control of the god of ice's protection when another boy stared at her before. Even though he's surprised, he accepts and promises to continue. Kamui thanks him and says she will move forward. As he stares at her seriously, he thinks that, although it's all he can do right now, he wants to help her overcome her limitation in some way. Kamui asks the protagonist to make an intimidating expression. He is startled by the request and apologizes, but quickly gets into the mood and stares at her seriously. The pressure of his gaze makes Kamui tremble, sweat, and clearly be shaken, as she tries to endure the intensity of the moment. The protagonist maintains an intense and sharp look, releasing a frightening pressure. Kamui tries to resist, but feels the weight of that gaze and starts sweating. Even forcing control, she eventually falters, expressing frustration and pain. The pressure is so much that she screams, unable to bear it anymore, while he continues to watch firmly. After Kamui falls to her knees, the protagonist rushes over in concern to see if she's okay. She tries to cover it up, asking if he's gotten stronger since the previous day. He answers no, explaining that his level doesn't increase, so he can't truly get stronger, even though he's learned various skills. Kamui apologizes for crying again, but he says it's nothing, and that in fact the blame is his from the start. She tries to apologize too, but he reassures her. Kamui, with a flushed face, asks why the protagonist is being so kind to her. He is surprised by the question, and answers that it's because he made her cry, so he feels he needs to take responsibility. When asked if he has a younger sister, he proudly confirms, saying his little sister would be mad at him if she knew he made a girl cry and didn't take care of her afterward. The protagonist observes that Kamui is more expressive now that she's no longer affected by the cold. She smiles more, cries more, and shows her feelings freely. He admires how she faces her own trauma and admits in his thoughts that he feels a bit envious of that. While reflecting, the scene shifts to a frozen location, suggesting that something is about to happen. The protagonist observes the ice left by the protection of the god of ice and wonders what he can do with it. Soon he acquires a new skill called ice melting, due to the difficulty of the situation. He celebrates, but hesitates, thinking whether his power could melt that specific ice. Kamui explains that this ice is not ordinary, so it probably wouldn't melt easily. He then comments that only he has permission from the school to use that room, even acknowledging that it was an abuse of the student council's authority. The protagonist observes the training room completely rendered useless by the ice and feels the need to do something. He doesn't want Kamui to be judged for it again. Driven by this desire, his skill evolves into absolute ice dissolution. Surprised and excited, he declares that this time he'll succeed, determined to solve the problem. The protagonist uses his new skill, absolute ice dissolution, and watches in surprise as the ice completely disappears. Kamui is also shocked, unsure if the ice melted or was disintegrated. He celebrates, saying that now they can go home without any issues. But Kamui, in shock, watches what happened and murmurs that it can't be real, clearly shaken by the result. While Kamui and the protagonist walk together, other students observe them from a distance, commenting in surprise at seeing them in a group and showing envy. One of them refers to Kamui as the Ice Princess. The protagonist hears the comments and gets nervous, trying to react. Kamui, on the other hand, calmly says goodbye, telling him she will see him later. He calls her out in surprise and she responds, maintaining her firm and calm posture. The protagonist, a bit embarrassed, asks if he can walk Kamui home. She is surprised by the request and asks if it wouldn't be boring to walk with her. He hesitates, concerned about potential misunderstandings or her trauma returning, but still says that he wants to take responsibility until the end, showing that he truly cares about her. Kamui starts to feel the intense cold taking over her again, and desperate, asks for help while gripping her bag tightly. The protagonist understands what is happening and, without hesitation, activates his absolute ice dissolution skill, saying that with his power, he can stop the cold. Kamui, trembling, seems to trust him once again. Kamui, still shaken, thanks him shyly with teary eyes. The protagonist, blushing and nervous, responds awkwardly, saying, "It's nothing." Soon after, he invites her to go together, and she accepts with a calm, "Yes." As they walk side by side, the narration highlights that the distance between them starts to melt, signaling they are getting emotionally closer. Some days pass since the protagonist began going to the training field, and during this time, he ended up making Kamui cry every day. Still, she remains strong, telling him not to worry. He, on the other hand, starts to question if he is acting right as a man, and even wonders what his sister would say if she knew. Kamui, even crying, thanks him with a smile, and he extends his hand, saying he will accompany her again that day. The protagonist finds himself confused and surprised by a new situation. He is at Kamui's family home. While trying to understand how he ended up there, an elegant woman calmly introduces herself as Irina, Hinata's mother, saying it's a pleasure to meet him. Hinata, nervous, introduces himself to Kamui's mother. She welcomes him with a calm smile but comments that she has heard a lot about him, especially that her daughter has been crying every day. Hinata panics, imagining a typical protective mother threat, thinking she will punish him. However, Irina simply invites him politely to come in, while a drink is served silently, creating a tense atmosphere. While waiting in Kamui's family home, the protagonist feels uncomfortable with the formal environment. A servant invites him to relax until the young lady arrives. Suddenly, he feels something strange and notices a presence approaching. A man with an intimidating appearance appears and is surprised to be noticed. The protagonist, confused, unintentionally unlocks a new ability, stealth detection, due to the difficulty of the situation. The man stares at Hinata intensely, making him nervous. Thinking that the old man is getting a bit slow with age, Hinata takes a blow in response. The man seems intrigued by his reaction, finding it impressive. Hinata, panicking, thinks his thoughts were discovered and ends up unlocking the resistance to mental reading ability. The old man, in the end, bursts into laughter and praises him, saying he has a good eye. Hinata is completely confused by the whole situation. Kamui appears wearing a traditional kimono, leaving Hinata speechless. Blushing, she asks if she looks good in the outfit. Hinata, nervous and shocked, answers yes, saying it suits her perfectly. Kamui smiles brightly, while Hinata, in shock, thinks about how devastating her charm is in that moment. Hinata becomes nervous when he realizes Kamui is sitting very close to him, instead of across from the table, as expected. With the proximity, he feels his throat dry and tries to disguise his nervousness. Kamui, calm, thanks him and says she can relax now. Hinata is so affected that he even unlocks a skill called waste decomposition due to the pressure, thinking that if it continues like this, he'll have to run to the bathroom. Irina returns and apologizes for the delay, while Hinata compliments the tea. With a serious look, she says it's time to begin and opens a mysterious box in front of him. Hinata is completely confused and scared, wondering what the worst could be, with no idea what is about to happen. Irina surprises Hinata by offering him the exclusive Kamui family credit card, saying he can use it as much as he wants. Hinata is shocked, thinking that it could help with his own family's expenses. Kamui, surprised and embarrassed, scolds her mother, saying that wasn't part of the deal. Hinata doesn't understand the reason for such generosity, since, until then, he had only been staring at Kamui intensely during training. Irina starts crying emotionally when she sees Kamui arguing with Hinata. The two young people are surprised by her reaction. Through tears, Irina comments that it's been many years since she had such a conversation with her daughter, revealing how much this simple moment meant to her. Hinata asks if Kamui acts the same way at home as she does at school, and she shyly answers yes. He is surprised to discover that it's been years since she had a light conversation with her own mother. Hinata starts reflecting and realizes that maybe Kamui has been trying so hard and crying every day just to have a moment like this. In shock, he admits to himself that, despite everything they've been through together, he doesn't know anything about her for real. Irina bows to Hinata, pleading for him to stay by Kamui's side. She hopes her daughter can have more moments like that. Hinata, surprised and moved, understands that by being with Kamui, he not only helps her with his ability, but also creates a space where she can smile and be herself. In tears, he realizes that the time they share is precious for everyone around them. Hinata firmly refuses Irina's proposal and returns the Kamui family card. He asserts that the relationship he has with Kamui is not something he wants to build in exchange for money. With conviction, he says he will support her every day and do whatever he can for her, making it clear that his intentions are sincere. Kamui watches in silence, surprised and touched by his attitude. Hinata declares out loud that he wants to return everything to Kamui willingly, without relying on money or rewards. Kamui is surprised and moved by his sincerity. Then, Irina, touched by Hinata's words, asks if he would be willing to get along with her daughter from now on, leaving an expectation about the future of the two. Hinata responds timidly that he would agree if Kamui also agreed. Kamui, visibly shaken and confused by the sudden situation, hesitates to answer. Irina insists, saying that this is for her and that it is something important for the Kamui family as well. Pressured and emotionally overwhelmed, Kamui covers her face and starts crying, while everyone around her becomes worried about her reaction. After Kamui runs away in tears, Hinata realizes the danger. Her emotions could unintentionally activate the protection of the god of ice and freeze the entire mansion. He runs after her, determined to stop her before the worst happens. Amidst the urgency, he awakens a new ability called Water Seal, acquired due to the difficulty of the situation. While running through the halls, he stretches his hand, trying to reach her in time. Hinata hesitates and thinks that maybe the best thing is to let Kamui run alone, respecting her space. However, he continues following discreetly, and as he passes through a gate, he awakens the Stealth ability. This ability then evolves into Absolute Shadow, allowing him to approach without being noticed. Kamui, sitting silently and with a sad expression, doesn't notice that he is right there, watching her carefully. Kamui sits alone, still shaken, when Hinata suddenly appears. She is startled to see him there and turns red, surprised by his presence. He apologizes, saying he was worried. The atmosphere between the two becomes silent and tense, until Kamui hesitantly calls for him, unsure how to express what she feels. Kamui, emotional, asks why Hinata cares so much about her, since, because of the protection of the god of ice, She can't interact normally with people or touch them. She feels isolated. Hinata answers sincerely, saying that at first, he just wanted to take responsibility for making her cry. But after seeing her struggle every day, it became something admirable to him, something that shone in his eyes. Hinata smiles and confesses that over time, he realized he wanted to be by Kamui's side. He wanted to be with someone like her. Kamui becomes emotional, her eyes welling up. She looks at her own hands and with a soft smile says that she hasn't been able to touch anyone for a long time, but now she is finally happy. With a sweet smile and tears in her eyes, Kamui sincerely thanks Hinata. She holds his hand gently, expressing all her gratitude. Hinata, touched by her words, just smiles silently, feeling happy to be by her side in that special moment. Kamui's grandfather suddenly appears, praising the warmth in the place, noticing that the cold has disappeared. Hinata and Kamui are startled to recognize him, and Kamui admits she used her ability to stop the cold. Her grandfather is impressed and, with a proud smile, praises his granddaughter for finding a good boy. Hinata resists Kamui's grandfather's pressure, who tries to intimidate him. Still, he remains calm and asks if the old man knows about abilities. The man refuses to answer directly, but ends up pointing at Kamui, saying that she is his granddaughter. Hinata, surprised, looks at her, who is completely blushing due to the situation. Out of nowhere, Kamui's grandfather shouts, asking Hinata to marry his granddaughter, startling both her and the boy. The explosion of the situation causes Hinata to gain a new ability linked to fear. Kamui, embarrassed, pleads for him to pretend he didn't hear anything. After this, the two return home together and are greeted by a woman, but someone mysterious also notices their arrival. Hinata and Kamui introduce her father, Kamui Akira, a man with an intimidating presence and serious appearance. Hinata welcomes him back cheerfully, while Hinata is completely shocked by his imposing figure. Kamui seems surprised and moved to see her daughter so smiling, as if she could barely believe what she was seeing. After dinner, Kamui's father expresses his gratitude to Hinata-kun in a very direct manner. He, emotional, says he has always dreamed of seeing the family together with his daughter smiling like this. Hinata-kun, embarrassed, responds politely. Shortly after, Hinata says goodbye with a smile and leaves, while Hinata-kun notices that she seems thoughtful and calls out to her. Hinata, embarrassed but determined, asks to be called by her name. This leaves Hinata-kun surprised and nervous, his heart racing. He hesitates, saying that he just needs some time, not because he doesn't want to, but because he doesn't feel ready to call her like that yet. They both get a little shy, but the atmosphere between them is one of sincere closeness. Hinata says goodbye with a smile, saying that he can call her any time. He responds somewhat embarrassed but happy. As he walks away, she stands watching and thinking about him, visibly touched. Her mother appears and asks if he will return, and Hinata, with a contained smile, responds that yes. She seems hopeful, as if she is gradually opening her heart. Hinata's mother praises the boy and says that the Kamui family will support her with everything they have. In a tender moment, she reminds Hinata that she is her daughter and deserves that support. Hinata acknowledges that she has received a lot of help from him and shows herself to be emotionally touched. Later alone, she feels his absence and notices how her smile only appears when he is around. Even trying to hide it, she feels his lack. Hinata leaves a building surrounded by a dense, cold fog. Her expression is serious and determined, showing that something important is about to happen. She is alone, and the atmosphere conveys tension and mystery. Hinata is entering an isolated and cold room, while outside, the protagonist prepares to explore a rank E dungeon. He reflects that he needs to acquire as many skills as possible to not fall behind her. Upon reaching the entrance of Dungeon 117, he hands his license to a guard, determined to keep evolving. The guard refuses Hinata's entry to the dungeon upon seeing that he is level 0, something never seen before. Even trying to argue, he is blocked. Frustrated, Hinata thinks of a way to enter unnoticed, and then remembers that he acquired the stealth ability, reigniting his hope of infiltrating the place discreetly. Hinata activates his total stealth ability and manages to pass by the guards unnoticed, excited to be completely invisible to them. However, when he thinks everything is going well, someone unexpectedly shouts, "Stop!" Zrania, catching him completely by surprise. Hinata is interrupted by Kai-kun, who appears noisily and arrogantly. After showing his palm, he is quickly released by the guard. Irritated, Kai complains about being stopped every time, saying that this kind of dungeon is too weak for him. And the guard sighs, tired of the audacity of these students. Hinata enters a dungeon, thinking it's the same as before, but finds the scene strange. There is no castle, and everything is different. The analysis ability activates and reveals that he is now in the troll prison. Confused, he tries to understand the change. Suddenly, a slime appears, and an unknown adventurer shows up excitedly, saying that they will deal with the situation. The group fights the slimes, and one of the girls manages to land a perfect hit with her weapon. They all celebrate happily while she raises her arms, shouting that she succeeded. Hinata smiles with the others, applauding her success. Hinata analyzes the slimes using his new ability and discovers that the monster's name is Coal, with an elemental weakness to fire and a rare chance of dropping a magical stone. He squeezes them too much and ends up exploding one of them, but then acquires the moderation ability and learns how to squeeze them without destroying them. Even so, he still doesn't manage to obtain any magical stones. The group encounters a flying Coal and believes it might be rare. They try to defeat it together, but the creature is extremely fast and agile, easily dodging the attacks. Even attacking as a group, no one can hit it. Hinata runs away carrying the Coal and complains that they tried to attack it, calling them horrible people. He reaches a platform and tries to understand how it works, but nothing happens, leaving him and the Coal confused. Hinata panics when he realizes something went wrong and is teleported. He reappears in a cave and faces Kai, who is already fighting an enemy. Confused, Hinata tries to understand where he is while observing the situation. Kai faces a gigantic enemy, a troll, identified as the boss of the floor. The magical analysis reveals that its weakness is fire, and that it can drop a small rare magical stone. The monster charges with fury, forcing Kai to retreat and prepare for a direct confrontation. Kai attacks the troll with full force, but despite the impact, the monster resists. Meanwhile, another group appears in the middle of the battle, fighting the enemies on their own. Hinata watches the movements and notices that another team is fighting on the other side of the field. The situation starts to become even more chaotic, with multiple groups facing the monsters at the same time. Kai lands a direct hit on the troll, but the creature resists and continues to fight. Hinata is surprised by the efficiency of the allied group, who quickly dominates the battlefield. He now understands what a real party is: coordinated and powerful teamwork. In the midst of the action, someone mysterious approaches, causing Kai to stop for a moment and turn around with a tense expression. While Kai fights intensely, a second troll appears unexpectedly, striking him with a brutal blow. He is thrown forcefully to the ground, causing an explosion. Hinata watches in shock, while Kai screams in pain. The situation changes drastically, revealing that the danger is greater than they imagined. Kai faces two trolls at the same time and realizes that this shouldn't be happening. Normally, only one boss appears per group. As he tries to understand the situation, Hinata hears the word abandon and becomes thoughtful. Suddenly, a strong older man enters the scene, joining the fight to help Kai, saying that he will protect him. Kai and the older man fight side by side against the trolls. They land several powerful blows, with explosions and cuts everywhere. Kai is impressed by the support and responds with determination, shouting as he charges into battle. The battle becomes even more intense, with the trolls retaliating fiercely. Kai finishes off the third troll with a precise cut. Exhausted, he kneels, trying to catch his breath. Everyone is puzzled by the appearance of a third boss, something uncommon for that type of dungeon. The group gathers and thanks each other for the mutual help, but they remain intrigued by the situation, raising the possibility of an anomaly in the boss system. The group decides to collect the materials from the defeated trolls and leave. Kai, still tired, says he will rest before going home. One of the explorers warns him not to overdo it, reminding him that life is more important than efficiency. While the others move on, Kai reflects alone, recognizing the strength of the boy and thinking that he too needs to be ready for the dangers that will come. Hinata realizes there should only be one boss per group, but a third troll appeared. He concludes that it's his fault since he wasn't officially in any group. Taking responsibility for messing up Kai's situation, he decides to face the troll alone. Hinata decides to use his stealth ability to deliver a surprise attack on the troll. With his martial arts skills, he manages to identify the enemy's weak points and plans to strike the neck, where the others had also aimed. Using his speed, enhanced for 60 seconds, he charges ahead, determined to test how far he can go. Hinata delivers the blow, and his stealth is deactivated. He now has 60 seconds until he can use it again. The attack hits the troll's weak spot, which begins to react, but Hinata remains focused, anticipating the next move from the enemy. Hinata realizes that even with martial arts, his attack isn't strong enough to cause damage. He considers his options: attack again, or wait for the stealth to recharge. While thinking, a girl appears and asks if he's from Seishin High School, interrupting his thoughts. A friendly girl appears and greets Hinata with a "nice to meet you." He responds timidly, but inside, he's worried, realizing he was seen entering the place without permission. The girl approaches the fallen troll and, impressed, asks if he defeated the creature alone. Hinata, nervous, tries to warn her that it's still dangerous. The girl confidently says the troll has already been defeated, touching it as if there's no danger. Hinata, still skeptical, tries to warn her that it might be pretending. Suddenly, the troll's body falls hard to the ground, startling them both. The girl just laughs at the situation, finding Hinata's excessive concern funny. The girl continues mocking his caution, laughing loudly and saying that monsters don't pretend to be dead. Hinata is surprised by her confidence. She pokes the troll again, asking him to come see. Hinata thinks about how fearless she is, but suddenly freezes, blushing, clearly embarrassed by something he saw. Hinata, embarrassed, tries to warn her that something is visible. The girl notices and casually lifts her skirt to show she's wearing shorts underneath, saying that it's fine. Hinata becomes even more surprised and red-faced by her carefree attitude. The girl laughs at Hinata's exaggerated reaction, saying that anyone would look in that situation. He, completely red and embarrassed, insists that he won't look. She then observes his reaction with a curious and provocative smile, finding it all quite amusing. The girl sees a new troll approaching and gets excited, saying that this will be the boss she's going to fight. Hinata watches, surprised, as she prepares confidently, pulling her weapons with a firm and determined movement. The girl faces the protagonist with a mischievous smile and says that what she's about to show is a secret. She then reveals a powerful and unconventional weapon, making it clear that he shouldn't tell anyone. The scene ends with her winking confidently, ready to take action. The girl confidently approaches an armed ogre, while the boy observes from a distance. With a determined look, she pushes off the ground and charges at high speed to attack, using her weapons strapped to her back. The boy, surprised, follows her movements with his eyes. The boy watches in awe at the girl's speed. She approaches the ogre in the blink of an eye, but it reacts with a powerful swing of its club. Even with her agility, she is caught off guard by the strength and speed of the attack, getting thrown back with a shocked look on her face. The girl is almost hit directly, but she manages to recover at the last moment. The boy notices something strange. Her weapon begins to glow with magical power. At just the right moment, she channels the energy encounters with an explosive strike, surprising the ogre and breaking part of its weapon with the force of the impact. With her weapon energized, the girl charges forward with full force. She lands a direct blow to the ogre's chest, shattering its armor and making it stagger back in pain. Fragments fly everywhere as she continues the assault, not giving it a chance to counterattack. The ogre attempts to fight back but is clearly at a disadvantage after the impact. The girl concentrates all her strength into a final strike. A bright flash erupts at the point of impact, and the ogre's face is contorted in pain and shock. She maintains her firm posture as the explosion of energy pushes the enemy back with overwhelming force. With the final blow, the ogre is thrown far away and disappears into the dust. The girl breathes a sigh of relief, wiping the sweat from her forehead with a victorious smile. She teases her companion in a playful tone, but soon realizes the enemy has completely disappeared, becoming surprised. The boy, in despair, tries to escape using a stealth ability, hoping she won't remember him. Meanwhile, the girl calls out to someone, suspicious. Hearing footsteps approaching, she turns her gaze, alert to any movement. The girl, already suspicious, runs straight to where the boy was hiding and hugs him in surprise, revealing his position. He is in shock, not knowing how to react. She compliments his hiding skills, but demands that he deactivate the stealth ability. Although hesitant, he tries to avoid being noticed, but she keeps insisting with a determined look. With tear-filled eyes and a sad expression, the girl says she will cry if he keeps hiding. The boy, completely caught off guard, panics when he sees she's about to break down. She insists with a choked voice, asking him to deactivate the stealth already, leaving him with no way out. With no choice, the boy deactivates the stealth and reappears, embarrassed. The girl runs to him, excited, asking how he managed to hide so well. She admits that even she couldn't sense his presence. He is surprised she discovered where he was, but she responds with a smile, saying she has a special ability, or maybe just good compatibility between the two. The girl casually approaches, leaning against him with confidence. She comments that he doesn't seem to talk to many people, and he probably doesn't have many friends. The boy reacts startled by her direct observations, trying to disguise it. Meanwhile, she laughs at the situation, asking if he got mad, but he just thinks confused, not understanding her way. The girl asks why he hides, but he avoids answering. She insists, saying that few people would remain so calm in such a situation, and calls him surprisingly masculine. He remains suspicious and directly asks what she wants from him, worried that his secret ability might cause trouble if discovered. She reacts, surprised by the direct question. With a confident smile, the girl extends her hand and reveals her intention. She wants to form a temporary group with him. The boy, completely taken by surprise, reacts scared and not understanding why she made such a sudden request. The boy hesitates, thinking he could refuse and go solo, but fears she might end up revealing his secret. Confused about her intentions, he ends up accepting the proposal. The girl celebrates happily, jumping for joy while he watches the scene with a defeated look, not understanding how he ended up in this situation. Excited, the girl spreads a towel on the ground and suggests waiting for the troll to reappear. The boy watches in surprise, noticing that her weapon, and now the towel, came from some sort of dimensional storage. Intrigued, he wonders where she got this ability. Sitting down, she remembers that they haven't even introduced themselves, lightening the mood and making it more relaxed. Sitting on the ground, they finally introduce themselves. The girl says her name is Shino and asks to be called that. Without formalities, the boy reveals his name, Hinata Suzuki. They discover that they are in the same year but from different classes, her in Class 2 and him in Class 3. Still, the conversation remains light and friendly. Shino comments about the S-rank student from Class 3, named Kamui, and acknowledges her fame. Hinata confirms, saying that she really is well known. Upon hearing this, Shino becomes thoughtful and somewhat uncomfortable, says it seems she has a strong rival nearby. Hinata is confused by her reaction, not understanding what's going through her mind. The troll reappears, and Shino quickly takes the lead, saying she will hold the front line. She instructs Hinata to attack from behind when an opening appears. Hinata, nervous, confirms and prepares for his first team battle. While Shino moves forward confidently, he runs around, ready to act at the right moment. Hinata surprises everyone by moving with impressive speed, cutting through the battlefield before the troll even notices. Shino watches in shock, not believing what she's seeing. The ogre turns around confused, while Hinata quickly closes in with his eyes, focused on the target. With a precise and powerful strike, Hinata hits the troll, causing a violent impact. The sound of the crack surprises Shino, who is left speechless by the scene. The troll stumbles back, while Hinata lands firmly on the ground, ready to continue. Shino, now truly impressed, prepares to support. The troll quickly falls defeated, leaving Hinata surprised by the efficiency of the strike. Shino enthusiastically praises him and offers all the monster materials as a reward. He accepts, still feeling awkward. Shortly after, she suggests they continue hunting at the same pace. Hinata is shocked by the idea, while she just smiles, excited about the partnership. After collecting plenty of materials, Shino suggests they head back. Hinata agrees but hesitates, saying he'd rather not be seen by others. When she extends her hand and offers to teleport, he panics at the idea of holding her hand. With a radiant smile, Shino says she wants Hinata to stay with her until the end, to make sure he doesn't run away. She even jokes, saying that if he tries to escape, she will cry loudly in front of Class 3. Hinata is shocked by the emotional threat, while she walks calmly, leaving him completely speechless. Already safely behind the exit, Shino grabs Hinata's hand, startling him with the sudden contact. She, calm, tells him they can now release the stealth. Hinata obeys and deactivates the ability. Shino, with a provocative smile, praises him for not running away this time, while he tries to keep his composure, still flustered. Shino reacts surprised by his comment, and Hinata laughs, saying he's used to it because his sister does that all the time. He notices that Shino's lively demeanor reminds him a lot of his sister, especially in her expressions and gestures. Shino asks more about her, and Hinata comments that she isn't strong or normal, she just managed to enter the dungeon thanks to her ability to hide. Still, she praises his technique, finding it impressive. Shino observes Hinata with a penetrating look and says she understands everything. Then she asks if he will also go to location E90 the next day. Upon learning that he plans to go, she immediately schedules a meeting there, emphasizing that, since they are a team now, it's natural for them to be together. Hinata, cornered and with no reaction, just agrees while she approaches with a victorious smile. Shino says goodbye, marking the next meeting for 10 a.m., leaving Hinata with no choice but to agree. He sighs, thinking it's only for one day, but resigns himself. Back at the dorm, his roommate comments that he seems to have gotten involved with girls again. Hinata tries to change the subject, asking which dungeon his roommate visited, while trying to disguise the exhaustion and marks of the adventure. Hinata's roommate reveals he went to dungeon D86 and comments that he was just helping, praising the members he was with. Hinata is impressed, and says he also needs to try harder to not be a burden. The other guy says that explorers are divided into two types, and prepares to explain, leaving Hinata curious about the information. The roommate explains that explorers are split into two groups: the maintenance group, which patrols already cleared and low-risk areas, and the conquest group, which ventures into unknown and dangerous territories. While the first group relies on prior information, the second faces the unknown, often risking their lives. Hinata asks if such exposure to danger is worth it, and the friend points to a famous explorer as an example, saying there are indeed advantages to being in the conquest group. The roommate explains that exploring unknown floors and difficult dungeons helps climb the explorer ranking. The top 10 receive special treatment from the government and worldwide attention. He also mentions a special reward, something mysterious that humans normally can't achieve, but would have a unique effect. Because of this, many aim for the top of the S rank. This is the true goal. Hinata listens to everything with surprise and curiosity. The next day, Hinata reflects on the Explorer ranking system and the mystery behind the top-ranked person, someone who supposedly no one else can surpass. He recalls a recent rumor about an unregistered person who reached the top of the ranking. Meanwhile, his roommate also wonders who this legendary explorer is and becomes curious about the special reward mentioned earlier, wondering if Hinata knows anything about it. Seeing the clock at 9:45 a.m., Hinata panics as he remembers his appointment with Shino at 10 a.m. Desperate, he realizes it takes an hour to get to location E90 and enters full urgency mode. As he hurriedly prepares, he fears what Shino might say if he's late, already imagining the consequences of being delayed. Shino is already calmly waiting at the entrance to Area E90, surrounded by a peaceful and illuminated landscape. She watches the area with a slight smile on her face, confident and serene, showing that she's ready for another day with Hinata, even though she doesn't know yet if he'll arrive on time. Hinata arrives on time at location E90, relieved and impressed by the effectiveness of the extreme speed boost ability. While using another ability to analyze the area, he observes the environment attentively. Shino, meanwhile, interacts calmly with a bird that approaches, noticing Hinata's arrival with a slight smile and a look of surprise. Hinata appears suddenly using stealth, startling Shino, who reacts with a scream. Irritated, she demands that he stop hiding, while he apologizes with an embarrassed smile. Still bothered by not being able to detect him, Shino grumbles, but he quickly proposes that they conquer the dungeon together that day, ending the moment with a determined air. As they walk through the forest, Shino detects the presence of a monster and guides Hinata quickly to the spot. He is surprised, thinking she also has the ability to explore the surroundings. Using monster analysis weak, Hinata identifies the creature as Kuna, with a wind elemental weakness and a rare chance to drop a small magical stone as an item. Shino suggests repeating the same strategy as the previous day, and Hinata agrees determinedly. As they prepare, the Kuna monster lets out a fierce roar and charges forward with speed. Shino faces the creature head-on, ready to take action. Shino charges into the attack with a powerful blow, showing confidence. Hinata watches in surprise, noticing that the color of the monster is different from the previous day, a sign that something is off. Shino's attack hits squarely, but the creature's new behavior hints at a potential increase in difficulty. Hinata seizes an opening and attacks with force, hitting the monster directly. The creature is sent flying with the impact, surprising even Shino. The monster lets out a loud roar, and Hinata watches with wide eyes. After the victory, Hinata is impressed with how easily they defeated the monster and asks if Shino is an incredibly strong explorer. She smiles and says she will leave all the monster materials with him again. Hinata thanks her, surprised and happy. Then he clenches his fist with determination, inspired by Shino's strength and the progress they are making together. Hinata defeats another Kuna monster with confidence, feeling that he is getting used to the battles. He celebrates excitedly, but is soon interrupted by Shino, who excitedly points to something unusual. Hinata turns around curiously, still unaware of what caught her attention. Shino finds the entrance to the boss room of floor E90 and eagerly calls Hinata to go there. He is surprised to realize they are about to face the boss. Without hesitation, she grabs his hand and pulls him enthusiastically, making it clear they are about to take a big step together. Hinata and Shino arrive before the boss room of floor E90. He notices there are no other explorers around, and Shino explains that this happens because when the boss is defeated, the entrance changes randomly. It's a special characteristic of this floor. Before Hinata can absorb all the information, Shino already pulls him again, excited, saying they should go into the room. He tries to maintain some space, but she remains very close and enthusiastic. Hinata and Shino enter the boss room and face a threatening creature perched on a cliff. He quickly activates the Monster Analysis Weak ability and identifies the enemy as Gig, a monster whose weakness is the light attribute. The rare item it may drop when defeated is a potion. The tension rises as the two face the challenge ahead. Hinata and Shino come face to face with the huge boss of floor E90. The creature commands respect with its presence and size. Without hesitation, Hinata charges to face the monster, which soon launches an attack with its mouth wide open. Hinata narrowly dodges the boss's attack. Remembering the Dungeon Guide's strategies, he decides to act with tactics. To avoid both being targeted at once, he orders them to split up, running to the right while Shino goes to the opposite side. During the battle, Shino warns that the strategy remains the same, but asks Hinata to be careful. Amidst the confrontation, she notices a new threat. The boss can spit fire, catching Hinata off guard. The boss unleashes an intense burst of fire. Hinata reacts quickly, leaping to the side and narrowly escaping the direct attack. Hinata barely manages to dodge the fire, but the boss doesn't relent and continues firing. The boy runs away, trying to think of a way to counterattack. Shino steps in front of the fire attack to protect Hinata, holding her weapon firmly. Even amidst the intense heat, she remains focused and ready to strike back, without hesitation. Shino charges forward with a powerful shout, making her way through the flames. Hinata watches in amazement as she faces the boss head-on, creating an opening for him to act. The boss roars loudly and charges forward, releasing more fire. Shino strikes with precision, but the monster reacts quickly. Hinata prepares to join the fight, closing in with speed. Hinata tries to attack the boss head-on but is hit by one of its claws. Shino takes advantage of the opening and jumps firmly, aiming a direct strike with her weapon while the monster roars in pain. Shino lands a solid hit on the boss, causing a great impact. She smiles, surprised by the result. Shino celebrates excitedly, thinking she has defeated the boss. Hinata observes the fallen creature's body, and even though he has doubts, he agrees that everything is probably settled. Both relax for a moment, believing the battle is over. After the battle, the two celebrate how easily they defeated the boss. Hinata praises Shino, saying it was all thanks to her. Shino responds playfully, saying the secret is his. Then something catches their attention, interrupting the moment of rest. Hinata comments that the entrance to the boss room really disappeared, confirming what was said earlier. It's impossible to predict where it will appear. He feels they were lucky to find it this time. Even though he wants the rare potions the boss might have left, he realizes it wouldn't be so easy to obtain them. Meanwhile, Shino starts complaining about being hungry, and the two decide to head to the city. Shino unexpectedly hugs Hinata, leaving him completely stunned. Even awkwardly, he comments that such a sudden act leaves him a bit unsettled. Shino, however, says she would be worried if he disappeared again, like he did yesterday. While walking with her still holding him, Hinata notices something strange and calls her with concern. Shino, with a soft voice and hesitant, apologizes in advance and seems to hold back her emotions. Hinata listens, surprised. Then she tries to smile and, even nervous, promises that she will do her best. While walking beside Hinata in the middle of the crowded city, Shino grips his arm tightly, visibly uncomfortable with the environment. Hinata notices the tight grip and is surprised by her unexpected action. Hinata notices that Shino is different since they arrived in the city. Previously lively, now she clings to his arm in silence, visibly scared. Worried, he tries to understand what happened, only to realize she has been afraid the whole time, even without saying anything. Hinata thinks that Shino might have some kind of trauma with crowds, just like his younger sister once did. Concerned, he tries to think of ways to help and make the situation less difficult for her. He then holds her arm firmly, showing that he's by her side. Hinata recognizes that everyone has their own traumas, and that strength or weakness varies from person to person. Shino apologizes, but he comforts her, telling her there's no need to apologize. He then decides to take her away from the main street, hoping she will calm down in a quieter place. Hinata realizes that, even away from the crowd, Shino is still very shaken. She tries to hold back her tears but can't stop them from falling. Worried, he wonders what exactly is making Shino suffer so much. In the middle of the crowd, Shino begins to panic. She holds her head, feeling intense pain. Everything around her seems to close in, and her mind begins to fail. The pain intensifies, and she can barely stand as she repeats that her head hurts. Shino crouches down on the ground, pressing her head hard. The noise of the city, the voices, the footsteps, everything seems to echo inside her like a storm. She can't stand the sound. Meanwhile, Hinata observes and confirms his suspicions. Something inside her is broken. Hinata carefully holds Shino's face, trying to get her attention. Her gaze, once lost and frightened, slowly meets his. For a moment, the noise and chaos seem to vanish. They both stare at each other in silence, as if time has stopped. Hinata realizes that Shino is carrying headphones, but she hasn't been using them. Surprised, he asks why. Shino responds with a shy smile, saying that she wanted to try walking beside him without blocking the sounds. Even with fear, she wanted to truly be with him. Hinata carefully holds Shino's face, and she stares at him in surprise, her eyes wide open. In this silent moment between them, Shino starts crying discreetly, moved by his gesture. Hinata apologizes for not noticing what Shino was going through. She tries to hide her pain, but ends up apologizing too, almost crying. While he watches her with a more serious and attentive gaze, he notices that the headphones she uses aren't ordinary. They seem specifically made to block out all the ambient sound, not for listening to music or answering calls. Hinata realizes that, with the headphones, his words probably don't reach Shino anymore. Still, he thinks it's okay, as long as she isn't suffering. But then he wonders, is Shino really satisfied with this? He understands that she came knowing the risks and chose to endure it all, but this bothers him. He wants to do something. He wants to change this situation. He feels there's an invisible wall between them, a barrier he wants to tear down, even though he doesn't know how yet. Hinata remembers when he protected Kamui-san from the cold and thinks that he wants to do the same for Shino. He feels powerless in the face of her pain, but doesn't want to stand still. With his heart heavy, he pleads for help, asking for power to be able to do something, to protect her. As Hinata cries out for help, a new ability awakens within him. Telepathy. A voice thanks him, calling him a partner. Surprised, he realizes he can now hear Shino's feelings. Seeing her shaken, he approaches, calling out to her with concern. Shino is surprised to hear Hinata's voice amidst the chaos. He tells her that that sad face doesn't suit her, revealing that now his voice reaches directly into her mind. In shock, she realizes she can hear him even with the headphones, and she runs to him, emotional. Shino runs and throws herself into Hinata's arms, crying with relief for finally being able to hear his voice. He holds her tightly with a calm smile while she cries against his chest, releasing all the tension she had been holding. Hinata holds Shino with affection, while reflecting that even though the headphones were meant to protect her, they ended up isolating her from the world. Unable to trust anything, Shino shut herself off. He thinks that maybe this isn't exactly what she wanted, but for now, this is enough. Shino falls into tears, thanking him with all her might, unable to hold back. Hinata, surprised and relieved, sees that she has returned to her usual self. He returns the hug, happy to see her well again. A general is worried about the disappearance of the seller of Magic Stone A. Even though he ordered his subordinates to stay on watch at the shopping center for days, there has been no contact. He wonders why this is happening right now. A rare artifact is found, surprising the officers. Despite the warning not to open it there, one of them insists that there is no danger, claiming they are in the safest place in Japan, with two of the most powerful individuals in the country present in the room. During the meeting, it is revealed that the Kami and Kagura families have already tried to buy the infinite magic stone. The commander, furious, realizes that the leak of information came from his own subordinates, who told their families. He explodes in rage, calling them idiots for compromising military secrets. Shuri and the representative of the Kami family pressure the marshal. She demands that the magic stone be handed over, reminding him of her family's contributions. Shuri, on the other hand, assures that the Kagura family also has power and influence, not falling behind in anything. Both demonstrate that they are ready to seriously compete for possession of the stone. The discussion between the representatives of the Kami and Kagura families intensifies. Both want the magic stone, claiming their families have more right to it. The woman insists that her family helped the Toma group more, while Shuri retorts, saying that his family needs the stone more. The marshal, confused and pressured, tries to handle the heated dispute from both sides. Shuri reveals that his sister can't live normally without being isolated, and that's why he wants her to be able to walk freely inside the mansion at least. The magic stone can make this possible, and declares that her family will buy it at any cost. Shuri is surprised by the rival's firmness, who says she is willing to pay with her own life for the magic stone if it helps her sister live more comfortably. He reacts indignantly, saying he won't give up this chance either, as he wants to protect his sister just as much as she does. Overcome with emotion, the two family leaders begin to argue heatedly and decide to settle the dispute in a duel. However, the commander quickly intervenes and forbids the idea, cutting the tension before the situation gets out of hand. The commander makes it clear that a confrontation between the two would be catastrophic, as one of them would surely end up severely injured. He threatens to throw the magic stone into the sea if they fight without permission. With this, both back down, frustrated. The commander asks for more patience, promising that he will try to acquire another magic stone so both families can receive one. He highlights the chance to find another seller and orders everyone to remain silent until then. Both generals back down at his command.